Do you think that when Trump tells Pam Bondi to persecute political opponents,
did he really though?
He literally put it on Truth. Pam, you need to go after Letitia James. You need to go after Comey. You need to go after Bolton.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got something intense for you. A conservative and a liberal go head-to-head in a heated debate about authoritarianism, military power, and whether using the National Guard for domestic law enforcement crosses a dangerous line. Things get really interesting when one side gets caught not knowing basic facts about what's been publicly posted online, and by the end, someone literally admits they've lost their train of thought mid-argument. You're going to want to stick around for the whole thing because this conversation builds momentum, and the final exchange is absolutely worth it. Before we jump in, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from today. I love seeing where all of you are watching from around the world. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, but I mean, it was within when it was within his legal right to do so. He did it, and he did it for the protection of the country, right? Most other countries also followed suit in ordinary ways. It's very plainly obvious to see what the argument is in favor of locking down to prevent the spread of disease and everything. I think it's a lot different than sending the military to a city and claiming you solved all crime in 2 days.
I agree that there's some language there that could be a little bit better when it comes to sending in 200 National Guard and saying you solved the crime crisis in DC.
No Democrat in my lifetime has ever, and even any Republican, nobody sent the National Guard or the military aggressively to states like this before, right? Nobody's done this but Trump.
I don't know if that's I'm not sure if that's true or not.
You can't remember it, right? I can't remember it, right?
But
they haven't. Right?
But the fact is that there is a crime crisis, and a lot of Democrat governors aren't doing diddly squat, or mayors aren't doing diddly squat about it. You look at the Chicago mayor and basically saying we're going to just stand against Trump every step of the way, and some of the governors, some of these mayors are actively promoting the flouting of federal law enforcement, and from my reading of the law, that is insurrection. And Trump isn't going after them on insurrection yet. He could, but
so he absolutely couldn't, to be clear. There's not an obligation. So conservatives used to be big states' rights people, but you don't have an obligation to make all of your facilities available and cooperate maximally with federal authorities.
You do not have an obligation to cooperate, but you cannot openly flout.
By openly flout, you mean the Chicago mayor said he wasn't going to make his resources available to federal police?
No, he's giving resources to prevent the enforcement by ICE of immigration law. What he is doing, and what Gavin Newsom has done, what Karen Bass has done, is promote an environment where they are protecting illegal immigrants from prosecution, giving them an opportunity to avoid ICE, saying that ICE can't operate in public domain.
That's not true. ICE is operated publicly. They have the authority and ability to go anywhere. They just don't have to have the full cooperation of the state government or city government in doing so, which, again, conservatives used to be big on states' rights, but, I mean, that's their right as mayors and governors to say. If crime is such a big issue, and if you think crime is such a big issue, I don't understand why there aren't more people upset that Trump is totally hijacking the conversation of actually having a real talk about crime, and it's playing games with the National Guard everywhere and having us not have that conversation.
What do you mean?
We're not having we're not having big boy adult conversations about crime right now. We're pretending we're 9 years old and we're sending the National Guard place, and he's saying he's fixed. You even admitted he didn't fix crime in D.C. in 2 weeks. He didn't fix crime in California or wherever else he wants to deploy his National Guard to.
To be fair, in regards to D.C., it goes beyond the National Guard being used there. But as far as reports have been, the crime has been significantly reduced in D.C., whether that's because of the perception of the National Guard being there, whether that's because, to some extent, the federal government has taken over or influenced the D.C. police force to enable them to take a closer look at high crime areas, whatever the case might be. Crime is down in D.C., and that is because of Trump's efforts, whether it's in the National Guard specifically that's been doing that, or it's other elements of that policy.
If Biden or Obama would have been deploying the National Guard to different states against their will, do you think that conservatives would have supported that?
It depends on what the point was, what the purpose was.
Well, the purpose is nothing, right? It's a show of force.
That's not entirely
The National
true.
Guard can't make arrests. The military can't make arrests. You mentioned that he might have done other things about policing in D.C. Well, then sure, that's a conversation about policing. And obviously, Congress and the federal government has more authority in D.C. to do that. But why not have that conversation in other states and cities? Why do this goofy military thing?
Simply because leftist mayors and governors just do not want to work with President Trump.
They don't have
to.
First of all, Trump is supposed to be the great great
but
deal maker.
Your cities, your states are drowning in murders, rapes, and
then that's the people's right to vote for those
other
people,
crime.
and the people can vote for their mayors and their governors.
And I hope they do. I hope
And they do, but that doesn't give Trump. But that doesn't give Trump the right to start using the military as law enforcement.
Right off the bat, this is where the entire states' rights argument collapses. Because when the liberal says conservatives used to be big states' rights people, that's not just a jab, that's calling out one of the biggest political contradictions of our time. For decades, the conservative movement built its entire identity around limiting federal power. The 10th Amendment was sacred. Local control was everything. Remember when conservatives fought against federal education standards, against federal environmental regulations? They said Washington has no business telling states how to run their affairs. But now, the second a Democrat mayor or governor refuses to cooperate with federal enforcement, suddenly states' rights don't matter anymore. Suddenly it's insurrection. The hypocrisy is staggering. Do you notice what happens when the liberal points out that nobody in modern history has deployed the National Guard this aggressively to states? The conservative response? He admits, I can't remember it. He knows he can't name an example because it hasn't happened. This isn't normal presidential behavior. The liberal nails it when he says, we're not having like big boy adult conversations about crime right now. Because that's exactly what's happening. Instead of addressing root causes, investing in community programs, reforming policing, we're getting theater, military costumes, and photo ops, while actual policy solutions get ignored. This isn't governance. This is performance art with dangerous consequences.
What he has used the National Guard for is to protect and aid federal ICE officials.
From the guys in the dinosaur costumes?
Dinosaur costumes? Oh, you're talking about the No Kings
I don't
protesters.
Do you think it's acceptable to use the military to do law enforcement, to enforce law in the United States against citizens?
At the moment, they're not, because that you're right about it being not.
But that's
being
what he
within
says,
the
right?
law.
He says he's deploying the military for law enforcement. Do you think that's a good thing?
The messaging, it could be better. I'll agree with that.
So he needs to message better to use the military for law enforcement.
Because what is inevitably happening is you got millions of people that actually think that Trump is trying to be a king when all he is doing is following the law.
He's not.
In putting the National Guard in places where he has every right to do so.
He doesn't. You absolutely don't.
Does.
You need the authority and consent from the governor to do it.
The courts have struck down any attempt to disable him from using the National Guard.
They have not struck down attempts to. They just
the circuit court in California that covers California did.
They rejected TROs or preliminary injunctions, but the case is still going to be ruled on. It's just going to take time.
Fine.
But I'm just you think that it's okay to send the military to do law enforcement? The
Sure.
president of the United States.
If
the next president is
reason,
Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris, and she says, "I'm going to send the military to Texas because I don't think they're enforcing the laws right," you think conservatives and you would support that?
If there was a crime crisis in Texas and Texas wasn't taking care of it themselves like they should be, absolutely.
It's a lot of qualifiers.
Well, yeah, there is, but you have plenty of examples of Democrat governors and mayors not doing their job.
That's not up to you. Who decides that? That's not up for the president to decide. These are elected officials. Why should the president get to decide if they're doing their job or not? And if he thinks they're not, what you're describing is, by the way, is a king, right? This is like a one man making the decision. I don't like how you're doing your job. I'm going to send the military there to go do it for you.
Like I said,
how is that not a king?
He is acting within the existing.
He's literally not.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And again, the courts will prove that point out as these cases continue to get.
There's already been stuff reversed related to like
down.
the immigration stuff. The Abrego Garcia guy was ultimately brought back. A lot of the El Salvador stuff has been.
He was ultimately brought back to face human trafficking charges. He was not brought back because
he was brought back because Trump. To be clear, he was brought back
to face
human
trafficking charges.
He was brought back because Trump broke the law.
No, he was brought back to face human trafficking.
Why would we send him there if he was going to be brought back to face charges?
He could have been left in El Salvador.
Why? No. Then why did he bring him back?
To face human trafficking charges in
Then
Tennessee.
why did he deport him in the first place?
Because new allegations came to light, and I think it was a smart move to bring him back to face human trafficking charges because that is a serious violation. That is a serious crime, and it goes to show what we're facing with the illegal immigration crisis.
First of all, they deported him again anyway, right? So what was the point? This guy's getting free flights all over the world at this point.
Right? They should stick him somewhere and let things, if they're gonna.
This is the moment that exposes everything. The liberal asks a simple hypothetical. Do you think it's acceptable to use the military to do law enforcement to enforce law in the United States against citizens? And watch what happens. The conservative can't give a clean answer. He admits, the messaging, it could be better. Messaging? We're not talking about a poorly worded tweet here. We're talking about military deployment on American soil for domestic law enforcement. That's not a messaging problem, that's a constitutional problem. Then comes the real test. The liberal flips the script perfectly. If the next president is Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris and she says, I'm going to send the military to Texas, would you support that? The conservatives answer, absolutely. But with all these qualifiers about crime crises and states not handling it, the liberal immediately catches it. It's a lot of qualifiers, because of course there are qualifiers. He knows conservatives would never accept this from a Democrat president, but he's trying to justify it now. And here's the knockout line. What you're describing is, by the way, is a king, right? This is like a one man making the decision. That's not hyperbole. That's literally what authoritarianism looks like. One person deciding elected officials aren't doing their jobs properly and deploying military force to override them. The founders specifically designed our system to prevent this exact scenario. Checks and balances exist because concentrating power in one person's hands is dangerous, regardless of their intentions.
Do
you think that when Trump tells Pam Bondi to persecute political opponents,
did he really, though?
He literally put it on truth. Pam, you need to go after Letitia James. You need to go after Comey. You need to go after Bolton.
I
he
don't
literally. Wait. Are you not aware that he's publicly stated that he put that on Truth Social?
I would say that that's fine. It's only going to be a problem with the courts, though, because does have that appearance. It is
what it is. He's literally calling for it.
It's the appearance. We all know they committed crimes. Well, Letitia James.
Then why is it all they have is the mortgage fraud stuff?
Yeah, which is funny because isn't that what she charged Trump on?
No, it's funny because the last mortgage fraud they went on, the governor, one of the Federal Reserve chairs, was all bullshit. They made it up, right? And then when more documents came out,
I'm not sure that's true.
It is true, right? There's a reason why they claim they're going after these guys for big crimes. They did the same thing with Hunter Biden. They didn't get him on any Burisma stuff or whatever. The confidential informant for that
was during the Biden administration. If you're going to talk to me about Trump influencing justice, you have to talk about Biden influencing the Justice Department to not go after his own son. And then
Biden influenced the Justice Department.
I'm not pardoning my son. And in the last minutes of his presidency, pardons his son,
which he's been fully redeemed on, by the way, as Trump has done everything he can to put political charges against every political opponent he's had, number one. But number two, you're saying that Biden was controlling the DOJ when there was a special prosecutor appointed to investigate his documents, and when the Republican Congress was constantly investigating Hunter Biden, and when they got indictments against Hunter Biden for the gun thing and the tax thing, that was Biden directing the DOJ? No, this is not a real argument.
Lost for words for the moment. Lost my train of thought. But actually, I'm going to let someone else speak. I've been up here long enough. I appreciate it.
This is where the entire facade just crumbles. The conservative asks, did he really though? Like he genuinely doesn't believe it happened. And the liberal comes back with receipts. He literally put it on truth. Pam, you need to go after Letitia James. You need to go after Comey. You need to go after Bolton. This wasn't a private conversation. This wasn't leaked. This was publicly posted for everyone to see. The president literally telling his attorney general to prosecute his political opponents. And the conservative didn't even know this was public information. He's out here defending something he hasn't even researched. That tells you everything about how these conversations go. People defend actions without knowing the basic facts. Without understanding that what we're watching is the systematic dismantling of prosecutorial independence. Then when the conversation shifts to the whole Biden and the DOJ conspiracy, the liberal systematically destroys it. You're saying that Biden was controlling the DOJ when there was a special prosecutor appointed to investigate Hunter Biden, and when they got indictments against Hunter Biden for the gun thing and the tax thing, that was Biden directing the DOJ. No, this is not a real argument. Think about the logic here. If Biden was controlling the DOJ to protect his son, why would there be a special prosecutor? Why would there be indictments? Why would Republicans in Congress be able to investigate freely? The conspiracy falls apart under the smallest amount of scrutiny, and then the final moment. The conservative literally says lost for words for A&A for the moment. Lost my train of thought. He's speechless. Because when you're confronted with actual facts, actual timelines, actual evidence, the talking points stop working. This is what happens when narrative meets reality. The difference is devastating. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.